Striking suddenly and leaving a mark. Remember this? It's back. Winter making a dramatic return to southern Ontario. Heavy snow, high winds, and all-around messiness.
We're live behind the wheel in the wake of this wallop, taking it slow and staying safe as the storm pushes its way through. Good evening. The flakes really started falling early this afternoon. The accumulation right on time for rush hour.
Collisions, delays, and cancellations all following in rapid succession, and the cleanup might take a while. CTV's Beth McDonnell is out in the elements for us tonight. What are you seeing, Beth?
Michelle, I'm seeing cars drive through a lot of slush, some of them splashing my boots tonight. Haven't felt this in a while. Tonight, the City of Toronto says the plows are out on roads, on bikeways, and sidewalks. It's not just a snowy commute, it's a very slow commute. Whether on foot or in the car, getting home is taking extra time.
I don't like this weather. I like summers more than this kind of weather.
This is one of the biggest blasts of winter in the GTA so far this season.
I thought, okay, hi Santa.
Hitting in the afternoon and in many places causing rush hour gridlock. The snow is also creating slick conditions, this car appearing to come very close to a house. The OPP is reporting up to 50 collisions around the region, telling people to drive carefully and be patient.
It is slippery out there and your stopping distances are going to be longer. So give yourself lots of following distance. Make sure your full headlighting system is on. Give yourself that distance, which gives you time.
Crews are busy at Pearson Airport working to clear the snow and keep flights on time. Still, dozens of routes are experiencing delays. That means checking schedules are critical for those planning to travel.
This is one of the biggest de-icing facilities in the world, so there's a lot of work for them to do. But of course, when we see weather systems like this are coming 48 hours in advance is when we really start to kick our planning into high gear.
It's a long weekend, so I think this is really putting a damper on the long weekend to come.
The snow, a messy reminder this is still Canada and it's still winter. There is an upside to this painful commute. Come the weekend, it may be the best time yet this season to go skiing or tobogganing. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Well, that sounds fun. Thank you, Beth. Light freezing drizzle reported in the city at the moment. The weather advisory for Toronto was dropped late this afternoon, but the slick conditions remain, slowing down your evening commute out there. Let's walk you through the remaining concerns this hour. Here are the watches and warnings. If you look towards Lake Huron, Kincardine, they're dealing with a snow squall warning this hour. And then to the east of Toronto, Peterborough, Ottawa, that winter weather travel advisory, it remains. And to the north, Parry Sound, Bancroft, they're dealing with a snowfall warning. Here is the system. You can see it pushing eastward, but we are dealing with lingering precipitation, flurries, and light freezing drizzle remaining for parts of Toronto and the GTA. Temperature-wise, it's -1 right now, but there is a wind chill, and it is going to get windier this evening, so it feels more like -6, -1 in Milton, 1 degree in Grimsby and Hamilton. Here is your overnight at a glance. So it definitely settles down from that heavy stuff we saw this afternoon. Flurries in the mix, cloudy conditions, -4. But as the winds gust up to 70 kilometers an hour, you'll be dealing with a wind chill of -13. So keep that in mind when you're out. And tomorrow morning should be quite a bit settled. -3 when you walk out the door. We'll have your full weather forecast a little later in this newscast. Well, it does remain to be seen if the weather will cooperate, but the government says it's doing its part to make life a little easier for drivers.
And cheaper, banning tolls on all provincial highways. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with more. Siobhan.
Well, at this point, there is no proposal to add tolls to any highway in Ontario, but the government is doing this preemptive move, they say, to make life more affordable for people behind the wheel.
With a new political session a few days away, the government is again introducing policies aimed at drivers and their wallets.
Focused on keeping costs down for families, making sure we put more money into your pockets.
A bill is coming to block future attempts to make drivers pay.
I am pleased to announce that our government is introducing legislation that would, if passed, ban tolls on provincial highways.
That includes all the 400 series highways, plus Toronto's Gardiner Expressway and Don Valley Parkway. The province agreed to take responsibility for the DVP in Gardiner in its new deal with the city signed in November. The Ford government has scrapped tolls on 2 highways, but for the one that's left,
407 is a private entity. We're here to talk about the province's infrastructure.
the bill can't touch Highway 407, sold off by the province in 1999.
So robbery having a car over here in Ontario, the amount of fees you got to pay for licensing and everything like that.
A driver welcoming a promise to hold the line on the cost you pay for a driver's license or age of majority card. Right now, it's $90 every 5 years.
Our freeze has saved Ontarians $22 million since 2019, and will save drivers $66 million more this decade.
A plan to make re-registering your vehicle automatic, announced by the Premier earlier this week, will kick in this summer, though the minister couldn't say exactly when. It comes as we've learned more than 1 million cars are on Ontario roads right now without valid registration.
The automatic renewal process will only be available to drivers in good standing who do not have outstanding tickets or related fees, and municipalities will still be able to use the renewal process to collect outstanding fees.
Notices will be sent to drivers who have bills to pay to get their registration in order.
And more news out of Queen's Park. Late this afternoon, we learned that the province has reached a tentative deal with teachers in Ontario's French language system. Now, the deal still has to be ratified. There's been no date set for that ratification vote yet. But if this deal is approved by members, it would mean that 73% of teachers in this province do have a contract. The only one that doesn't at this point, the only union, is the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association. Their next set of bargaining dates are at the end of the month. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And still to come, car enthusiasts charged up. Why this year's auto show has an electric feel. We get a sneak peek. Still ahead.
In Oshawa, a 12-year-old boy is facing charges after police say he was arrested with a loaded gun. Durham police say this happened Sunday. It's alleged the boy sent a threatening video to multiple victims via Snapchat. Investigators say the video showed a gun and ammunition. They say they found him and the weapon and took him into custody. He faces charges including uttering threats and firearms offenses.
Police in York Region are sharing dramatic and potentially disturbing video of a home invasion robbery in East Gwillimbury this week. This is from around midnight Wednesday at a home near Charlotte Abbey Drive and Holland Landing Road. A resident told police several men broke into the house with guns and one victim was pistol whipped, suffering minor injuries. The suspects fled with valuables in a light-colored vehicle. Investigators are appealing to anyone with surveillance or dash camera footage from around that time and area to get in touch.
The province's Special Investigation Unit has charged 2 Toronto police officers after an incident downtown last June. The police watchdog says officers were near College and Dufferin and found a vehicle that had been reported stolen. After an interaction with 2 men inside, it's alleged the officers discharged their guns in the direction of the men. The 2 suspects were eventually arrested and one was sent to hospital with injuries. The SIU said constables Jamie Denisek and Derek McNeil face charges including assault with a weapon and careless use of a firearm. They're set to appear in court March 12th. Canada's urging Israel to not launch a ground offensive in Rafah, where over 1 million people are seeking refuge.
The latest plea comes as Israeli forces entered the main hospital in southern Gaza today. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
A frantic search for survivors after Nasser Medical Complex is attacked. Other than the injured, thousands of Gazans were sheltering in the hospital, now forced to flee again into rubbled streets. The airstrikes were so intense, said this medical volunteer. 2 patients were killed. The Israeli military blew up a wall, then troops stormed in.
Because Hamas terrorists are likely hiding behind injured civilians inside Nasser Hospital right now and appear to have used the hospital to hide our hostages there too.
Palestinians seeking safety have few places to go. Israel says it intends to send troops into Rafah to hunt down more militants. Rafah is the site of a massive tent city. It's also where Faraz and Arij Obied's father is sheltering after his home was shelled by the IDF.
They would force my father to walk in front of their tanks in case there's like a roadside bomb, I'm guessing. They would force my father to open doors for them, while they're standing behind him. In case there's an ambush, there's a booby trap, it would kill my father first.
Ahead of the looming ground offensive, the Egyptians are building a new massive wall to prevent Palestinians from fleeing to its territory. In a joint letter with the leaders of Australia and New Zealand, the Prime Minister said a Rafah offensive would be a catastrophe. 1.5 million Palestinians, including our citizens and their families, are there. We urge the Israeli government not to go down that path.
This morning, I spoke with President al-Sisi of Egypt. I've spoken with Minister Benny Gantz in the Israeli government. Yesterday, I sat down with King Abdullah of Jordan. And we are continuing as a country to engage in the full complexities of this situation.
According to Global Affairs, since October 7th, more than 760 Canadians and permanent residents have crossed from Rafah into Egypt, including 30 people last week. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Here in the city, it's been a day of protest outside the U.S. consulate.
Continuing calls for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. CTV's Janice Golding is live with more. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. That's right. About 100 people gathered across from the U.S. consulate early this morning, calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
USA! Shame, shame, USA! Shame!
Their voices loud, their signs held high. Protesters rallied outside the U.S. consulate.
30,000 Palestinians killed!
The demonstrators calling this an emergency protest to demand an immediate ceasefire in the 4-month-long Israel-Hamas war, a conflict in which tens of thousands of Palestinians have died, many of them women and children, according to local health officials.
We're protesting constantly. We have lives and we have jobs and we have kids too. We have to show up for the people. We have to speak up for the people that don't have a voice.
Since last October 7th, more than 1 million Palestinians have sought refuge in Rafah, and today's protesters say they're concerned about the expansion of Israeli operations against Hamas strongholds in the southern border city.
There is a nuclear power that has bombed and killed over 28,000 Palestinians. The International Court of Justice has ruled that there's a probable case for genocide.
The protest, however, not without detractors. This woman, for example, deeply upset by the cries of genocide.
It is not okay. And it actually strikes fear in the heart of a lot of people, Jews and other people.
Toronto has seen more than 340 demonstrations related to the Israel-Hamas war since its onset. And Richard Marceau of the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs says Jewish Canadians are facing a huge spike in anti-Semitism.
I can tell you that the Jewish community is yes, afraid, because it has been targeted by anti-Israel demonstrators. This kind of anti-Semitism has no place in Canada. The fact that there's a conflict thousands of kilometers away is not a reason to have this type of activity here in Canada. This is not okay.
Justice is our demand.
Still, protesters say they have to speak for those who can't, calling the situation in Gaza a humanitarian catastrophe.
These people are begging for their relatives to be let to live. That's all they care about. They want to be let to live. They want a homeland like everyone else has.
Now, while the protest was scheduled to last all day, it wrapped up mid-afternoon when the heavy snow started falling. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
Right. Thank you, Janice. A Toronto area MP whose office was vandalized this week is now receiving protection from police. The Conservative Party official confirmed Deputy Leader Melissa Landsman now has RCMP protection, but didn't specify why. Landsman's constituency office in Thornhill was plastered with anti-Israel posters overnight, Wednesday, including one with a message referring specifically to the Jewish community. When asked about the incident by CTV News, Landsman's office declined to comment.
Olivia Chow's first budget as mayor has now been adopted by Toronto City Council, including a record 9.5% property tax hike. The mayor said today the increase was needed to help cover the $1.8 billion operating budget shortfall.
It's 80 cents extra per day, less than $1. And if folks can't afford it, let's say you're senior, fixed income, you can go to City Hall, call 311. Not very complicated. When you get the tax bill, say, oh, I can't afford this. Call 311, check if you qualify. We have a tax cancellation program, tax deferral program.
After her original budget reduced the planned funding increase for Toronto Police this year, Mayor Chow said she agreed to the full budget request of around $1.2 billion. Chief Myron Demkew says the money will have an impact on police response times in the near term.
We'll see the numbers come down at some point through the year, I expect. I will commit that I'll be reporting to the Police Service Board, as I do regularly. I do monthly updates in my board address every single month, and I'll be looking for opportunities to bring the public up to speed on where we are on that very important metric. There are other metrics, but that is one that certainly people have talked a lot about.
Chief Demkiw noted a new class of officer recruits is graduating soon, and police are promoting more supervisors to oversee frontline service delivery.
2 women were killed and another was critically injured in a stabbing attack west of Montreal today. Police were called to a condo in suburban Vaudreuil-Dorion just before noon. A 44-year-old man was arrested at the scene. He's in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators say he's known to police, but did not say if there's any connection to the 3 victims. Pierre Poilievre says Canadians are dealing with a housing emergency. And today, the Conservative leader introduced a plan to reward municipalities for building more homes while penalizing those that don't.
The deal should require municipalities permit 15% more home building per year. If they beat the target, they should get a bonus. If they miss the target, they should get a penalty. Small municipalities should be exempt from the penalties but eligible for the bonuses.
Poilievre is suggesting a pro-housing construction clause be added to agreements with municipalities under the Community Development Fund.
The Canadian-led NATO mission in Latvia will soon receive millions of dollars worth of new equipment.
I am announcing that Canada has finalized the procurement of an air defense capability for Canadian Armed Forces members in Latvia, and we are acquiring the RBS-70NG air defense system through an investment of approximately $227 million with Saab. Once operational, this air defense system will defend our troops against aerial threats, including fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and drones, and it will strengthen the defense capability of the battle group as a whole.
The announcement was made during a gathering of NATO defense ministers in Brussels. Bill Blair also says contracts worth $46 million were finalized recently for counter-drone equipment.
Investigators in Kansas City say the deadly shooting after yesterday's Super Bowl celebration appeared to stem from a dispute between several people.
Police have made arrests and have recovered multiple weapons. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Authorities have ruled out terrorism as a motive behind yesterday's deadly shooting in Kansas City, which killed 1 person and left nearly 24 injured.
The 22 victims' age ranged between 8 years old and 47 years old. At least half of our victims are under the age of 16.
The woman killed has been identified as Lisa Lopez Galvin, a local radio host and mother of 2.
Today in Kansas City was a day to celebrate. We woke up this morning excited, and the last thing we ever expected was to have a tragedy in our family.
Police say the shooting likely stemmed from an argument. 3 people are in custody. 2 of them are under the age of 18. In this video, you can see a man believed to be one of those suspects being taken down as he attempted to flee the scene.
There was a lot of commotion. I could definitely tell that, someone was being chased. Couldn't see much. Heard that get him. I saw a flash next to me. I jumped and remember thinking, I hope this is the food they were talking about.
More than 1 million people had gathered in downtown Kansas City to celebrate the Chiefs' Super Bowl victory when shots rang out on the west side of Union Station. The city's mayor says there were 800 police officers on site who sprang into action.
I don't think in any way that this is Kansas City. I do think that there is a gun violence challenge in this community and many others, and there certainly is a gun violence challenge as it relates to major events. That, however, does not mean that Kansas City will stop having major events.
Police say they have recovered several firearms from the scene, though they won't say how many or what kind. 8 people remain in critical condition as this investigation continues. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
In New York, a judge has denied Donald Trump's request to dismiss a case against him.
Instead of being in South Carolina and other states campaigning, I'm stuck here. It's an election interference case. Nobody's ever seen anything like it in this country. It's a disgrace. It's a disgraceful situation, actually. And we'll just have to figure it out. I'll be here during the day and I'll be campaigning during the night.
As scheduled, jury selection will begin March 25th. The former U.S. president is charged with falsifying business records to cover up payment of so-called hush money to adult film actor Stormy Daniels.
This has been a historic day in Greece. It is now the first Orthodox Christian country to legalize same-sex civil marriage. A cross-party majority of lawmakers voted in favor of the bill drafted by the Prime Minister's center-right government. Crowds in the streets of Athens celebrated the new law, which recognizes parental rights for same-sex couples, but it precludes gay couples from parenthood through surrogate mothers. Greece is the 16th European Union country to legislate marriage equality.
Reaching for the moon. A new lunar mission is underway tonight.
Ignition and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go IM-1 and the Odysseus lunar lander.
A rocket lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center this morning carrying a lunar lander. It was built by a Houston-based company that hopes for a successful landing next week. If so, it would be the first American craft to touch down on the moon since 1972. The hope is the 4-meter-tall lander comes down near the moon's south pole, and that's where NASA plans to land astronauts later this decade.
Prince Harry raced down one of the world's fastest bobsled tracks in Whistler today. Have a look. The Duke reached speeds of almost 100 kilometers per hour, later saying everyone should do it. He's in BC with Meghan ahead of next year's Invictus Games. It'll be the first to feature winter sports. This week's training camp is intended to support participating nations in building year-round adaptive sports programs. The Games were founded for wounded, injured, or sick service personnel and veterans. The couple will also visit Vancouver.
Police officers from across Canada were honored today for their dedication to duty and for making their communities better. The Governor General invested dozens of appointees into the Order of Merit of the police forces.
Despite the challenges you face, you have all performed your duties with great honor and dedication. You represent the very best of what policing is and what policing can be.
OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick was among the honorees. He was promoted to Commander of the Order. 16 officers and 80 members were also invested. The Order of Merit honors leadership, contributions to policing, and community development.
Well, it's the best time of year for local car lovers. The Canadian International Auto Show rolling into downtown Toronto.
And with electric vehicles top of mind for many, it's probably no surprise to keep them taking center stage. CTV's Mike Walker is taking a spin.
From luxury to 4x4s, even the Tesla Cybertruck and all sorts of concepts, electric vehicles are taking center stage at the Canadian International Auto Show.
Global automakers all over the world are focusing on electrification. Obviously, certain countries are instituting mandates.
Infiniti revealing its first ever electric vehicles, the QX Monograph, alongside the global debut of the Vision QE concept. Volvo debuting its EX90, a fully electric SUV.
We sold about 2.5 times more fully electric cars in 2023 than we did compared to 2022.
There are 31 vehicle premieres at this year's auto show. 45 brands are showcasing their latest models across 650,000 square feet at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, including the Rimac Navara. The all-electric hypercar is the fastest in the world.
1,900 horsepower. It broke 29 world records last year for the fastest acceleration ever built. So the fastest accelerating car, regardless of combustion or electric.
This morning, the Toyota Prius was named Car of the Year, and in a new category, the Genesis G80 claimed Electric Car of the Year. The Jeep Off-Road course is back to test your driving skills. You can also test drive EVs on an expanded course.
We've got 15 different vehicles you can test, including a Hummer.
There are plenty of exotic cars, including a Ferrari showcase.
We're looking at over $20 million worth of value of these cars.
Including this 1971 Daytona that had been forgotten in a Toronto condo garage for decades.
We got our hands on it. We're able to fully restore it and bring it up to its traditional standards.
There are plenty of classics and even life-size Hot Wheels, including Barbie's iconic 57 pink Corvette convertible.
Inspired by the Barbie movie. It's a fully functioning car.
Organizers hoping to build on the success of last year's auto show that drew 350,000 people. The event opens tomorrow and runs until February 25th. Mike Walker, CTV News.
Coming up, keeping commuters quiet while using transit. We check out the ad campaign asking riders to keep the noise down.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, today is Pension Awareness Day, a time to think about saving for your retirement. There is also a concern there could be thousands of people in Ontario who have pensions but have lost track of them. I'll have what you need to know. That's just ahead.
Currently -1, light snow reported in Toronto at the moment. We're in the tail end of our first significant snowfall in a long while. So far in February, we've been largely spared until today. Here are your snow stats for this month. As of yesterday, only 0.2 centimeters fell in Toronto. Last year, by this point, we would have had 1.5 centimeters, but obviously we have to add today's totals to the mix. The monthly average, 24 centimeters. Are we done with the snow for a while? We'll break it down for you in our full forecast just ahead. Today is Pension Awareness Day, a time to think about planning for the future when it's time to quit working and retire.
It's also a time to make the most of pension plans offered through the workplace and to keep track of them if you decide to switch jobs. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, it seems hard to believe, but there could be 200,000 people in Ontario who deserve to have pension funds, but they don't know it or they've lost track of them. If you've switched employers over the years, there could be money you're missing out on.
I was panicking.
Ihor Vuraha worked at a company for 20 years that had a defined benefit pension plan. At 45 years old, he switched jobs and said he only wanted to take his pension when he turned 65. Last year, he retired and tried to collect it, but was told they couldn't find it.
They said, well, we don't have you on our records. You don't exist in our books.
After 5 frustrating months trying on his own, Vuraha reached out to the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario, FSRA, for help, and they helped him track down his retirement funds.
So just getting this resolved was a major, relief, to say the least.
It's estimated when it comes to lost or missing pension benefits, 200,000 Ontarians are owed funds equal to $3 billion. It may be because you changed jobs, a company closed down, or you didn't update your contact information.
It happens when it's a job that you held, 30 years ago in your 20s. And then you have forgotten that you actually are entitled to a pension plan.
Employees are being urged on Pension Awareness Day to know if your workplace offers a pension plan or find out if it has a retirement savings plan. Learn about employer matching, decide what you can comfortably save, and make a pension plan part of your job search criteria. FSRA says retirement saving is now more important than ever.
Savings for retirement has always been very difficult. Especially in trying times like this, where inflation is high.
If you think you're owed pension funds or have questions about retirement plans, you can check FSRA's website. Also, keep track of your paperwork. That's what helped Vuraha recover his pension.
You worked all those years to save it. You want it back when it's time to have it. Pay attention to that pension.
And a poll taken for Pension Awareness Day found 81% of people are more concerned about paying for day-to-day expenses than saving for retirement. 20% said they think they'll never be able to retire. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Well, it's been a long time, but we finally got some snow, and I think I'm actually thankful.
It is. I'm not angry, although I'm sure some folks who had a real slow drive into work or around the city were cursing it a little bit, but it's moved out largely, which is kind of nice. But just as we finished the noon show, it really started to come in heavy. It was fast, several hours, and now it's not much of an issue. It's just what remains. So let's have a look at what we're working with. Here is the satellite radar. You can see the system moving eastward, but you can see kind of it wraps around. So that's where we're still getting flurries, and the roads are still slick, but fortunately we don't have that winter weather travel advisory, at least not for Toronto up towards Kingston, Ottawa. They certainly do. So here are the forces at play on our systems, Mac, and there is a cold front moving in, which could bring some lake effect flurries. That's a tongue twister for you tomorrow. But for the most part, we are through with the worst of it, which is fortunate. So here's the forecast radar. So you can see 8 o'clock tonight for Toronto and the GTA, Hamilton, Niagara Falls. Nothing really to worry about. It's just a good chance to kind of dig out. And if we play it forward, you can see into your Friday. For the most part, in the morning when you step outside, not much in the way of flurries. Here and there, a few bands throughout the region. And there is the potential for some flurries throughout Friday and into Saturday, but not a big weather event like we had today. Moving forward, tonight's lows, -4, but it will feel like -13. So if you do have to be outside, you want to bundle up. There are gusty winds in the mix, upwards of 70 kilometers an hour at times, and that's the situation right around the region. Tomorrow, the high only 0 degrees, so it's a cool one, and there's a bit of a wind chill, but not as bad as today. Here's how your 7-day forecast plays out. For Friday, the TDSB kids, they have a PA day, so it'd be a nice day to go tobogganing. A little flurries here and there. We might see some sun, and it's cool, the high only 0 degrees. Saturday and Sunday, there is the potential for flurries lingering, a high of -2 on Saturday, so it remains cool. Sunday, a bit warmer with a high of 0. And then for Family Day, Monday, where many people are off, you will get beautiful sunshine. It'll be on the cool side, but really that's seasonal for February with a high of -1. And then into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, really next week looks rather calm, not really unsettled. So if you like snow, we got some today, and enjoy it while it's here.
Well, it looks like the Leafs will have 3 key players back when they host the Philadelphia Flyers tonight.
Shoots again, blocked in front. McMahon with a chance, scores! Robbie McMahon's got 2, and the Leafs have a 3-1 lead.
Toronto's coming off a win over St. Louis on Tuesday. They play without John Tavares and Mitch Marner because of illness. Then William Nylander missed practice yesterday for the same reason. But all 3 took part in the morning's game day skate and appear ready to go.
Meanwhile, this was the first day of spring training for the Toronto Blue Jays.
We're here.
Woohoo! They're not dealing with any snow. Pitchers and catchers reported to the team's development complex in Dunedin, Florida. Some position players were also on hand, but they don't have to report until early next week. The Jays begin the preseason February 24th against Philadelphia. Their regular season starts March 28th in Tampa Bay with a home opener April 8th against Seattle.
Also tonight, cost-cutting measures to save money on medication. Why many Canadians say they're resorting to splitting pills in half.
As the federal government negotiates a pharmacare deal to address medical coverage, a new survey reveals some Canadians are resorting to cost-cutting means to save on critical prescriptions.
Many Canadians saying prescription costs are so high, they're having to split their pills or skip doses. CTV's Kimberly Fowler reports.
I just had knee replacement, and the medication's really important.
Teresa Cull is recovering from a major surgery. Thankfully, she can afford her medication.
To be honest, I'm pretty happy with the OHIP. So I'm a senior. You pay $4.11 for a prescription. So I think that's good value.
But not everyone is as fortunate. A new Leger survey says nearly 1 in 4 Canadians are splitting or skipping pills, some even foregoing refills because they can't afford prescription medications, which can cause further complications.
Well, you shouldn't. I think that would be the key message. You're prescribed the regimen and your medication for a reason.
The poll found 22% of those surveyed have reported splitting pills, skipping doses, or not renewing their prescriptions. 28% have made difficult decisions to cut costs elsewhere, such as reducing grocery spending, delaying payments on rent, mortgage, or utility bills. The poll also found that 1 in 10 Canadians with chronic conditions have ended up in emergency rooms from worsening health because they couldn't afford prescription medications.
With a universal pharmacare program, we could resolve this.
According to a 2019 report, 7.5 million people in Canada either don't have sufficient drug coverage or they don't have prescription drug insurance. The Liberals and NDP are negotiating a pharmacare plan they hope to table by their March 1st deadline.
Although ideally we do want a comprehensive drug formulary, a basket of medicines covered, the reality is that probably at the beginning, they'll begin with a smaller basket of medicines and that's a good start.
The Ontario Pharmacists Association agrees that a national pharmacare program will best serve those who have inadequate or no drug insurance.
We do need, in a fill the gaps type model, the federal government to step in and really target the investment to those that need it.
Kimberly Fowler, CTV News.
A new study finds that smoking tobacco can have long-lasting impacts on the body's immune system even years after quitting. The findings were published this week in Nature. Researchers found people who quit smoking soon had immune responses similar to non-smokers when fighting new bacteria or viruses. But a separate part of the immune system that defends against past pathogens didn't bounce back as quickly. The authors noted that other factors, including body mass, played a factor in immune responses.
Fans of The Joker are getting another sneak peek at the upcoming movie sequel. Director Todd Phillips shared a few new images of Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix in character as Harley Quinn and the Joker. Phoenix won the Best Actor Oscar for his portrayal of the Batman villain in the 2019 original. The sequel has been teased as a musical psychological thriller called Joker Folie à Deux. It hits theaters in October.
Rod Stewart is joining the list of legendary artists selling the rights to their music catalogs. The Wall Street Journal reports the rock singer sold his publishing and recording interests to Irving Azoff's iconic artist. The deal reportedly worth nearly $100 million US. Stewart will soon release his 32nd studio album titled Swing Fever.
Vogue has set the dress code for the 2024 Met Gala, as well as naming 4 celebrity co-chairs for the fashion event. The 2024 Met Gala will take place on Monday, May 6th. The event sees some of the biggest names in entertainment donning out of the ordinary outfits. This year, the theme is The Garden of Time, inspired by J.G. Ballard's 1962 book of the same title. Put more simply, Vogue says the theme is basically fleeting beauty. Zendaya, Bad Bunny, Chris Hemsworth, and Jennifer Lopez were named event co-chairs.
And speaking of Jennifer Lopez, her new album and accompanying short film are out in just a few hours. This Is Me Now is J.Lo's first studio album in nearly a decade, and it's a follow-up to 2002's This Is Me Then. The singer also announced she's going on tour this summer with a stop in Toronto, August 2nd.
And J.Lo isn't the only artist planning a musical comeback. Shakira said she's got a new album on the way. She posted an album cover and a few other photos on social media. The album's title in Spanish translates to Women No Longer Cry. Shakira thanked fans for their support as she put the project together. It comes out March 22nd.
A documentary delving into Canadians' complicated feelings about Nickelback is heading to the big screen.
They became the most hated band in music.
We try and laugh it off. You can laugh off about 90% of it, and some of it hurts.
The complaints about Nickelback.
You might remember Hate to Love debuted at TIFF last year and will screen for 2 nights in theaters across 30 countries next month. The film explores the formation and global success of the Alberta band, as well as its divisive reputation. Nickelback said they hope everyone enjoys their story, fans, friends, or otherwise.
Tonight, the latest on what police are calling an armed assault.
We had deployed 5 ambulances in total.
New details into the deadly stabbing attack at an apartment complex near Montreal. Later on CTV National News.
So give yourself lots of following distance. Make sure your full headlighting system is on.
Updating our top stories, police are urging caution on the roads across southern Ontario after a blast of wintry weather hit the region this afternoon. Dozens of crashes have been reported. Meanwhile, crews at Pearson Airport are clearing the snow, hoping to get dozens of delayed flights on their way.
Keeping tolls off our roads is a win-win for families and our economy.
The Ford government is proposing a new policy aimed at drivers and their wallets. If passed, there would be a ban on tolls on all provincial highways. The transportation minister says Highway 407 would not be included as it is already a private entity.
We sold about 2.5 times more fully electric cars in 2023 than we did compared to 2022.
And the Canadian International Auto Show is rolling into downtown Toronto with electric vehicles taking center stage at this year's event. The auto show opens to the public tomorrow with cutting-edge and vintage cars on display through February 25th.
In business, commodity prices are in a slump as investors worry about a global economic slowdown. With more, here's Andrew Bell from BNN Bloomberg.
Hello there. Tumbling prices for corn and wheat helped to push the Bloomberg Commodity Index this week to its lowest level since 2021. That may mean lower prices for essentials such as food, but it's also a reflection of economic gloom. U.S. retail sales came in weaker than expected, and Japan and Britain have fallen into a recession. The Canadian dollar is at risk because of this country's reliance on commodity exports, especially crude oil. Canadian Tire shares slipped just a little today, but over the past year, they're down almost 15%. Fourth quarter profit and revenue at the retailer dropped from the previous year. The company says the economic environment is tough and a warm December curbed sales of seasonal goods. Still, David Aim, an equity analyst at Cardinal Capital Management, says, quote, long-term, this company is going to do well. If you just look at the long-term dividend growth track record of Canadian Tire, it really has done a great job. And finally, shares in MTY Food Group, which owns numerous food court and fast casual restaurant brands, dropped 14%. Underlying profit of just over $60 million in the latest quarter lagged analyst forecasts by more than $7 million. The company says consumers have reined in discretionary spending. The CEO told BNN Bloomberg, we need to come up with creative ways to make the consumer experience a little bit better, so they spend a little bit more every time they come to our restaurants. Let's check in on the markets. The Canadian dollar was at 74.25 US cents, up almost half of a cent. WTI oil, the North American benchmark, changed hands at $77.59 a barrel, up $1.23. Western Canadian Select oil was at $56.54, according to our latest quote, down $1.32. And the TSX Composite Index ended the session at 21,222.69, up just over 333 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
A new report from the Federal Housing Agency says construction on new homes slowed down across much of the country last month, but not Toronto. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the annual pace of housing starts in January fell 10% compared to December. Construction began on around 223,000 units. But here in Toronto, the annual rate was up 179%, thanks to an increase in multi-unit starts. That's compared to drops of 28% in Montreal and 55% in Vancouver.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Just ahead, the ad campaign that has people talking, the TTC asking riders to stay on mute during their commute.
Finally tonight, could you keep it down, please? If you're a transit user, how many times have you wanted to say that to a fellow rider?
Turns out that TTC is doing some of the dirty work for you. Here's CTV's Scott Lightfoot.
On this midday subway heading north along the Yonge line,
arriving at Lawrence Station.
The loudest voice is that of the automated station caller. But according to the TTC, loud-talking riders, especially those on their phones, have become a common complaint.
Don't talk too loudly. It's very, very bad for impact for other people.
Honestly, it's so irritating. Every time I hear people talk loud, oh my God, as if nobody's beside them or they're not concerned about the others, I guess.
An ad campaign currently running across the system aims to call attention to the noise pollution. The signs read, "The silent commute," and advise riders that wearing headphones and speaking quietly helps to make the TTC better for everyone.
It is annoying when people speak really loud in the TTC.
A TTC spokesperson tells CTV News the lighthearted signs are part of an annual etiquette campaign for riders. And along with the introduction of cell service through parts of the subway system has come a rise in complaints about people not wearing headphones while streaming content to their devices and sharing the sound with fellow passengers.
I find that persons listen and watch a lot of things that are not appropriate, and we have children on the trains and on the buses, and I do believe there needs to be a standard.
The campaign also features signs for keeping backpacks off seats, not littering, and sharing space with others. All things aimed at bringing disruptive rider behavior on the TTC to a screeching halt. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Well, it was heavy at times, and it seemed like it would never end, but it kind of pushed through.
It came through heavy but quick, and now it's moving right on out. Let's have a look. There are still some concerns. So the system has pushing its way eastward. So Peterborough, Kingston, Ottawa, they're dealing with the winter weather travel advisory now. It's been dropped for us. Snow squall warning in Kincardine and west of Kitchener, and a snowfall warning to the north, Parry Sound and Bancroft. Here is what it looks like on the satellite radar. We're dealing with a bit of flurries, light snow, but really at this point for us, the winds gusting 40 to 70 kilometers an hour. So keep that in mind. A blowing snow is definitely possible. Tomorrow, flurries, a bit of sunshine, even the high 0. Saturday, Sunday, the potential for flurries persists. A high of -2 on Saturday, high of 0 on Sunday. Look at the evenings. They are cool, so keep that in mind if you have evening plans. And then next week, we have sunshine for Family Day, and it isn't too cool at all. So the unsettled stuff, we'll be through with it by the weekend.
All right, good to know. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with her next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. That's it for us. Take care.